Alright, hey guys, welcome back to Movement Projects, episode 56. Today we're going to talk about a very common deadlift fault. So what I like to do in my training is use things such as kettlebells to keep the piece of equipment directly under my center of mass so that something like this can be prevented. But with the barbell, we commonly have an issue doing the hip hinge of using too much low back as opposed to using the dominant muscle groups, the glutes and the hamstrings. So when the person messes this up and feels a back pain, there's a few common things that happen. They're very far away from the bar, and so the center or the fulcrum is far away, making my back have to do the work. But say all of the coaching cues are there and all the mechanics are there, but they're still getting a bad back position. So let me demonstrate. Someone goes in for the bar, drops down, has a little bit of lumbar curve, and as they pull up, all right, then they finally extend their back and they push their hips forward. What we want is for them to get into a good neutral spine position. So I'm going to need them to tilt their hips back, push their hips, keep the brace midsection, drop down, drive up with their spine straight the whole way. So I'm not going to find that back extension at the top. I'm going to maintain that the whole time. All right. What happens is it's not a mechanical thing. It's not something you can coach through. It's simply that they don't have the length in their hamstrings to get down in that position. They have to find the extension from their back. They have to get down there by hunching from their back as opposed to hinging from their hips. So what I do to help that is I actually give incline. So here's a 45-pound bumper. I'm going to put a 45-pound bumper under the bar. Gives them a little bit of elevation. It allows the person to not have to go quite as far, so they can get in the hinge, they can drop to the bar. They don't have to find that range of motion from their back. All right, so after going through all those things, go ahead and click it. Okay, so what we did was we regressed the deadlift and elevated the bar. The other option is the option that I like to use, is to use a kettlebell. So what happens when you use a bar is that center of mass or that weight is in front of you. What I want to be able to do with the kettlebell is put its mass directly underneath my midline so that I can straddle the weight, hip hinge, knees over ankles, draw the shoulder blades back, midsection is braced, and stand up from there. All right? With this little bit of an elevation and with the positioning of the kettlebell, I'm able to get into that hip hinge and it helps my position, which will transfer over to the barbell. But we still don't have that hamstring length. So besides going through the kettlebell hip hinge or the kettlebell deadlift, we'll also do some mobility. So one athlete you're going to find is going to need to pull the bar from the ground because they're going to compete someday, right? So to work on that hamstring length, let's go ahead and lie onto the foam roller. Just like we do on the lacrosse ball, we'll put more weight on one and start to smash into those really tender and knotted up tissues. So if I feel a tender spot, I want to breathe on that spot and wait for that tenderness to subside. So I'll spend about 2 minutes on my left and then switch 2 minutes on my right. Focus on asymmetries if I have them. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is use my kettlebell or use my barbell to kind of get an idea of the depth I'm trying to improve. And I'm going to grab a hold of a band and work in some hip distraction. I'm going to put the band all the way up by the top of my thigh. This is the depth that I'm trying to get better at, so I'm going to brace my midsection, shoulder blades drawn together, and dip down for it, all right? So I'm trying to get in this position, trying to get my hip hinge to have this range of motion. So I'm going to work into lengthening my left leg while my femur is in distraction, pulling the back of the hip socket, and see how much length I can get in this position if I get a little bit of help from the band, all right? Spend a couple minutes in both legs in the band, and then finally, just like anything else, finish with some kind of mimic the movement with a drill. So what I'm going to do is keep myself accountable to keep a really straight spine by holding onto the dowel at my head, my thoracic, and my sacrum, all touching the dowel. Bend from the knee, can you see my knees? Bend from my knee, and find out how far I can push back into a hinge and able to keep it on all 3 points. If I dip off, I've gone too far. All right, this is a really good drill to do right before a deadlift so that you get an idea of body position and your own self-limiting factors. So how far can I go down before I actually start to flex from my spine and therefore I'm putting too much pressure and tension on my low back. All right, so I gave you guys some alternatives to the barbell deadlift, and I'm also giving you a sequence to help you with your hip hinge abilities. So take a look at that, and good luck.